The 2017 NBA Draft will likely go down as one of the greatest classes in the past several decades. This is mainly due to the fact that there are multiple players already ascending to star-level status and even have a couple of all-star appearances under their belt to substantiate that claim. Jason Tatum, for example, already has 2 all-star appearances and 2 trips to the Eastern Conference Finals as a pivotal contributor. Donovan Mitchell also has 2 all-star appearances, and in his rookie year, he helped a Jazz team that just lost their star player all the way to the second round past the reigning MVP, and is currently the best player on the team with the best record. Bam Adebayo is the physical embodiment of a next-gen point center and played a massive role in an NBA Finals run. De'Aaron Fox, he's very fast. It doesn't have many team accomplishments since their team's kind of a dumpster fire. Click on the card in the top right corner if you want to see me talk about that. But regardless, he is an insanely talented player with perennial all-star bids in front of him. And John Collins, since he's been drafted, has shown out to be an absolute stud. He checks all the boxes of an excellent modern NBA power forward. And every season since his rookie year, he's mitigated some sort of weakness that he's had in the past. First, it was his lack of strength, then he bulked up. Then it was his lack of defense, and he got a lot better at that this season. I think it's safe to say that John Collins is the 5th best player in the 2017 NBA draft class. And I make the argument that he's the biggest draft steal in terms of when he got picked in relative to his talent. But after recognizing these points, I still have to ask, John Collins is awesome, but what's next? See, what I mean by that is this. I don't doubt the fact that he will continue to improve from year to year, but when I say he's the 5th best player in his class, I don't just mean in terms of right now. I think it's a pretty solid gap between John Collins and whomever you'd consider the 4th best player, but in terms of their ceiling. See, the rookie contract is supposed to be a taste of what a player can accomplish moving forward. Their specific actions in NBA games give you insight as to how they'll be years down the line. And Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo, and De'Aaron Fox have all shown that the sky is the limit for their ceiling. And they've all been rewarded with max rookie extensions because of that. But John Collins has been left out of this milestone. He recently downed an extension from the Atlanta Hawks that was in excess of $90 million over the course of 4 years, and honestly, I don't blame him. So today we're seeking to find the answer of what is the best action moving forward for John Collins. Before I continue this video, I'd like to request everyone currently watching this video to please leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Only about 33% of you that watch my videos are subscribed, and as a smaller content creator, it helps a tremendous amount if you do, and it would mean the world to me. So before we start delving into theoretical scenarios, we have to establish some important points. 1. Like we've already established, John Collins turned down a $90 million 4-year extension, and it seems like he's looking for something closer to the max based on this quote. 2. There's credible reports that state John Collins has an issue with Trae Young running the offense. This doesn't mean that he needs to be the number 1 option, but rather he wants more ball movement and flow within the offense as opposed to early shot clock attempts and watching a player be vastly ball dominant. Which, honestly, I don't disagree with him. The Hawks are trying to make the playoffs this season, so the only scenario where they'll make a trade before the deadline is if they get a good win-now piece, or they just get something they cannot turn down. And 4. John Collins is a restricted free agency, so the Atlanta Hawks have the ability to match any deal that John Collins could sign with another team. So even if John Collins walks, they won't walk away with nothing because they can just orchestrate a sign and trade deal. This is per Travis Schlenk. Okay, now let's get into these. Let's start off with the Atlanta Hawks. It is definitely possible that after talking about all this that he does end up back in Atlanta for the next 4 years, and I think the most likely scenario where he ends up staying with Atlanta is if instead of outright offering a contract, they'll just wait to see what his offer sheet is going to be. If they feel like it's a fair pay, then they can match it. If not, they'll negotiate a sign and trade deal to get something in return. And even if John Collins isn't on the roster next season, they still have a backup plan because they did draft Onyeka Onyeka Okongwu at number 6 this past draft, and I think he'll be able to fill that void really well as a much cheaper option for the next several years. The New York Knicks, they have the ability to have 2 max slots this coming offseason. Julius Randle just made an All-Star game, which is honestly insane to think about, so he'd probably move to center as opposed to being moved. But what's happening with Mitchell Robinson? And even after that, what about Obi Toppin? Is he just gonna ride the bench? The fit here just concerns me. The Charlotte Hornets, they've definitely been a pleasant surprise to say the least, and they'd be able to orchestrate a double sign and trade likely involving either Devontae Graham or Malik Monk in exchange for John Collins. But then John Collins would likely have to start at center because of PJ Washington. Could it work? Yeah, probably. The Houston Rockets, they have cap space. Christian Wood is already locked up at center and looks great. Kevin Porter Jr. is an absolute steal, so why not go for John Collins to cement that solid young core, especially since they might lose their top 7 pick this year. The San Antonio Spurs, well, it's pretty easy. You replace old LaMarcus Aldridge with a younger, more modern LaMarcus Aldridge. The Oklahoma City Thunder, it actually gets pretty interesting here because they have an absolute boatload amount of cap. And on top of that, a $19.5 million trade exception, as well as a $27.5 million trade exception that can be utilized for trades and sign-in trades, even if they were above the cap, which they aren't. So if they really wanted to, they could either take on some bad salary or just get like every single restricted free agent if you wanted to. So Shea, John Collins, and whomever they'd pick with their 50 bajillion first rounders is an amazing setup. The Boston Celtics. Okay, look, I know this is a bit of a homer mention, and I recognize that, but this is still genuinely possible. There is no trade here. I want to get that out of the way because, what are you going to do? Aaron Nesmith and a couple first round picks? Please don't suggest that to me. That's not going to happen. But it is a similar scenario to that of the Thunder. Boston still has that $28.5 million trade exception that they'll have full access to this summer since they will no longer be hard capped. And you can utilize trade exceptions in sign-in trades. I think if this were to happen, this would mitigate one of John Collins' criticisms of a single player-led offense, because Brad Stevens has a diverse amount of sets and John Collins will be able to get his open looks. I referenced Gordon Hayward's 18 points per game last season despite playing with 3 other 20 points per game scorers within Boston's offense. And I'd much rather have John Collins at center instead of Daniel Tice in late game situations. The main issue that arises that would deter Boston from even making this move is that they will be in luxury tax hell. But honestly, I still think they'd be okay with paying it. If I were to have my preferences, I'd obviously want this one to happen. The Cleveland Cavaliers. So this one is actually a multi-step process, but I think the end result is definitely worth it. So first of all, the main thing inhibiting them right now is Kevin Love having 2 years and $60 million left in his deal. So here's what I propose. Step 1, trade Kevin Love along with draft compensation, and it'll likely have to be a decent amount given the length and size of his contract. In exchange for LaMarcus Aldridge's expiring contract, you could then buy him out or renounce his rights during the offseason, same difference, and then use that cap space to go and sign John Collins. And then your starting 5 would be Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, John Collins, and Jared Allen. I don't think I need to make my case anymore. And then there's the big one that's been in all the rumors, the Minnesota Timberwolves. So there's not really an outlet where a sign and trade during the offseason can really be arranged. So if Minnesota wants him as desperately as it's been reported, it has to be before the trade deadline. And remember what I said earlier about it having to be a trade that'll help them win now, since they're still aiming to make the playoffs this year. Now, I've got 2 scenarios on hand right here. The first one is the more likely and sensible one. The Wolves would be receiving John Collins and Tony Snell's expiring contract to match salaries, and the Hawks would receive Malik Beasley, which, despite the fact that the Wolves suck this season, Beasley has been pretty damn good and he's got an amazing contract for the next 3 years. This is a win-win situation. The second scenario, I admit, is a bit out there, but since Minnesota wants John Collins so badly, I think the Atlanta Hawks should try their best to leverage this situation. I call this Operation Bring Anthony Edwards Home. So I want to establish that it would be very, very hard for the Wolves to let go of Anthony Edwards. I am not going to disregard that. I get that he's having a bit of an inefficient rookie season, but overall, when you watch him in games, he looks amazing, and a lot of the time, and his potential is absolutely through the roof, definitely more than John Collins. So this trade I propose would be Anthony Edwards in exchange for John Collins, Cam Reddish, and a 2022 top 3 protected pick. Now, you're either gonna think I'm batshit crazy or you're gonna think this makes perfect sense. Cam Reddish has been pretty inconsistent through this point in his career, but I still think he can get it together and fulfill his potential. And Anthony Edwards is genuinely the most perfect partner you can pair with Trae Young. It'll allow Trae to play off ball, and Ant is, on his best day, an amazing shot creator, scorer, good ball handler, great defender, and an overall freak of nature. That's why I think if Atlanta was determined to get Anthony Edwards in exchange for John Collins, they would have to pay the King's ransom. And to be quite honest, this is probably not even enough to get Anthony Edwards. John Collins is 23 years old and fits the timeline for a 25-year-old D'Lo and 25-year-old Cat in terms of progression better than a 19-year-old Ant. But Anthony Edwards does fit the timeline better for a superstar tandem duo with 22-year-old Trae Young in terms of age, progression, and just how well these two can play together. Now, with all that being said, I've taken every potential John Collins move that I suggested in this video and put them on a scale of likeliness to happen, starting from Vince Carter winning an NBA championship to a wide open Steph Curry 3. If you want to pause, feel free to take a look. Anyways, that is all I've got for you guys today. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like, comment down below where you think John Collins will end up at the start of the next season, along with any other thoughts you have. And of course, subscribe, and while you're here, feel free to check out some of my other videos. With that being said, I will see you guys next time.